I was balancing the steaming pot of chicken soup between my hands, trying not to spill a single drop. The kitchen felt colder than usual, even with the stove running, because my father and sister were sitting at the table staring at me like I was some sort of intruder in their castle. My 7-year-old son, Caleb, sat quietly near the corner of the counter, legs pulled into his chest, watching me with wide eyes. He always watched me like that in this house, like he was waiting for something bad to happen. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us Ion comments from where are you watching this video. Dad leaned back in the seat like a king in his throne. Move faster, Jenna. You walk like you're dragging the whole world with you. My sister, Brielle, flicked her perfectly curled hair over her shoulder and smirked. She's still slow, Dad. Maybe she thinks she's actually allowed to sit down with us today. Caleb flinched at her voice. He always did. She scared him more than my father did, and that said everything. I swallowed hard and kept walking, each step careful, my arms trembling from holding the heavy pot. It wasn't even for me. It was for them. Everything in this house was for them. When I reached the table, Dad narrowed his eyes. What took you so long? Soup gets cold when idiots take their sweet time. I'm coming, I murmured, trying to place the pot safely on a heat mat. Brielle snorted. She thinks she's a guest. Look at her. Pathetic. I opened my mouth to respond, but Dad suddenly stood behind me. I didn't even hear him move. I only felt the sharp, brutal kick to the back of my knees. My legs buckled instantly. The pot lurched forward. The boiling soup crashed straight onto my chest, splashing across my shirt, searing into my skin. I gasped, choking on the pain, the steam rising in my face as I fell to the floor. Caleb screamed. Dad didn't. He burst into laughter, that deep, ugly laugh he only used when he enjoyed hurting someone. Servants don't eat before the princess, he barked, pointing at Brielle like she was royalty. You forgot your place again, Jenna. Brielle clapped her hands dramatically. Oh, Dad, stop. She might start crying, and we all know how she gets when she cries. Caleb scrambled over to me, his small hands trembling as he tried to wipe the soup off my shirt with the sleeve of his own. Mom, you're burning. Mom, please. His voice cracked, and he looked up at my father with terrified eyes. Dad stared back, cold and unbothered. Don't touch her, boy. If she wants to play victim, let her. Brielle nudged a piece of chicken off the table toward us with her fork. Here you go, Jenna. Might as well eat off the floor where you belong. The room spun, either from pain or humiliation. I didn't know which one hit harder. I tried to stand, but my shirt clung to my skin, sticking in places where the soup had burned through the thin fabric. Caleb wrapped his arms around me to help, and Dad scoffed. Look at that. Even her kid knows she can't stand without help. Dad, she's embarrassing the floor, Brielle added, wrinkling her nose. Can't she crawl to the sink or something? The smell of burnt clothes is ruining my appetite. Every word stabbed like a needle. Every breath hurt. I managed to get to my feet, but not before Dad muttered under his breath. Should have kicked harder. I touched the blistering patch forming under my neckline and bit back a cry. Caleb whispered, Mom, let's go. Please, I don't want you to get hurt again. He said again because this wasn't new. None of it was new. Dad hurting me. Brielle mocking me. Mom ignoring me. Everyone acting like I deserved it. Everyone treating Caleb like he wasn't even human. I staggered toward the sink and Dad called out, Oh, and don't get your filthy tears in the soup. That's still dinner. Brielle burst into laughter again. If she cries into it, maybe it'll finally have taste. Caleb's fists clenched. He never spoke back, but today he looked like he wanted to. Don't, I whispered to him. Not here. Not with them. The moment I said that, Dad scraped his chair loudly against the floor. So even your kid knows his place. Good. Maybe he won't grow up as useless as you. Caleb shrank behind me. Something inside my chest, something deeper than the burn, tore a little. I washed the soup off my skin while my father and sister ate loudly behind me, slurping and laughing, making sure I heard every bite. Caleb kept touching my elbow, checking to make sure I was still breathing. Then came the final humiliation. Dad held out his empty bowl toward me without even looking. "Refill." I froze. Caleb whispered, "Mom, please don't." But I still took the bowl. My hands shook violently. I turned toward the pot again, my chest stinging, my legs throbbing, my heart pounding like it wanted out of my rib cage. Then Dad added softly, cruelly, "And hurry up this time, before the princess gets mad again." Brielle smirked at me with pure satisfaction, like she lived for this, like my pain gave her oxygen. And that was the moment I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not fear, something colder, something sharp, something final. They thought I would always take it. They thought I had nowhere else to go. They thought I would keep crawling forever, but standing there, burned and shaking, with Caleb gripping my sleeve like I was the last safe thing he had left. I knew something. I knew they were wrong. Everything that happened next, the consequences, the unraveling, the moment they finally realized what they had done, all of it started in that kitchen, under that fluorescent light, with soup burning into my skin and my father laughing. And I already knew. This was the last time they would ever kick me down. I couldn't sleep. That night, every time I closed my eyes, I felt the soup burning my skin all over again. The patch across my chest had turned bright red, swollen, and angry. Caleb kept waking up beside me, touching my shoulder to check if I was still in pain. "Mom, does it hurt a lot?" he whispered in the dark. "It's okay," I lied, even though moving felt like my skin was tearing. When morning came, I tried to get dressed without letting the fabric scrape the burn. Caleb watched me with this worried little frown he shouldn't have had at 7 years old. He wasn't supposed to be this protective. He wasn't supposed to learn this kind of fear. Downstairs, I heard Brielle laughing, loud, fake, but sharp enough to cut skin. Dad grumbled something about breakfast. The same routine. The same toxic morning smell of burnt toast and resentment. I guided Caleb down the stairs slowly, keeping my breathing steady. I still hadn't told him we were getting out. Not yet. I didn't even know how. Dad was sitting at the table like a judge waiting to deliver a sentence. Mom was there too now, sipping her coffee like she'd been up for hours. She didn't even look at me. Brielle did. She smirked instantly. "Wow, the soup stain matches your face." "Cute," Dad snorted into his mug. "Told you she's too clumsy to do anything right." Mom finally glanced over, eyes cold as concrete. "If you didn't want to get burned, you should have moved faster." Caleb stepped in front of me like he was shielding me. "She tried. Grandpa kicked her." The whole table went silent. Dad leaned back slowly, eyebrows raised. "What did you say, boy?" Caleb's tiny shoulders shook, but he didn't back down. "You kicked her. You hurt her. You made her cry." Brielle laughed so hard she actually slapped her knee. "Oh my God, look at him. He thinks crying is rare for her." Mom set her cup down with a soft clink. "Children shouldn't lie." "He's not lying," I said quietly. Dad stood up. His chair screeched. "You accusing me of something in my own house?" I swallowed. "I'm saying what happened." He walked over slowly until he towered over me. "If you weren't such a disappointment, maybe I wouldn't have to knock sense into you." Caleb tugged my hand desperately. "Mom, let's go, please. I want to go outside." Dad bent down to Caleb's level, smirking. "You want to go? Then go. Your mom can stay here and clean up." Caleb tightened his grip. I felt my throat close. I looked at Mom, hoping, stupidly, for something. A shred of defense, a flicker of humanity. She just shrugged. "He's right. You need to toughen up, Jenna. Life won't treat you delicately just because you cry." "But you're my mom," I said, voice cracking more than I wanted. She didn't even blink. "And?" Those 3 letters hit harder than the soup had. I thought things couldn't get worse. But then Brielle got up, walked over to Caleb, and tapped his cheek lightly with her finger. "Your mom's teaching you to be weak," she said. "Maybe that's why nobody wants to be around you, too." Caleb jerked away like she'd slapped him, and something inside him broke. He started crying, not the quiet, scared sniffles he usually had. but a loud, full sob that made his whole body shake. His little hands clutched my sleeve so tightly his knuckles turned white. Brielle laughed. "Oh my God, Dad, look! He's melting!" Mom sighed. "Take him upstairs if he's going to ruin the morning." Dad waved his hand. Useless. Just useless. Their faces blurred for a second because my eyes filled with tears I refused to let fall. I grabbed Caleb and walked upstairs without another word, but my legs were trembling. He cried into my shirt until his breathing turned hiccupy and uneven. I held him until he calmed down. Then something else hit me. Hard. He didn't want to be held anymore. He pushed back slightly, wiping his own face, trying to pretend he wasn't hurting. He was growing numb. He was learning how to hide pain, just like I had. That realization was like ice down my spine. When he finally fell asleep curled in my lap, I stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to the faint sound of my family laughing downstairs as if nothing had happened, as if we were nothing, as if hurting us was entertainment. I looked at Caleb again, at the small rise and fall of his chest, at the way he clung to my shirt, even in his sleep, and I whispered, "We're not staying. I don't care how. I don't care what it takes. We're not staying." But leaving wouldn't fix anything. Not anymore. They wouldn't let go. They wouldn't stop. They would keep showing up, keep calling, keep trying to take Caleb from me to discipline him, keep trying to remind me of my place. I knew my family. Once they feel ownership, they never release it. So I needed something else. I needed something permanent. Something that would make them regret every bruise, every insult, every humiliation. Something that would make them understand they had finally chosen the wrong person to break. The burn across my chest throbbed with every heartbeat. It wasn't just a wound. It was a reminder, a countdown, a beginning. Because from that morning on, I didn't walk around the house like a daughter or a sister or a servant. I moved like someone planning something very precise, very quiet, very final. And they had no idea. They didn't notice how I watched them. They didn't notice how I wrote things down. They didn't notice how I listened. They didn't notice that every cruelty added fuel to something they couldn't see yet, something building, something sharpening, something ready. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't know what I was preparing. They didn't know that their own words, their own laughter, their own hands would be the thing that destroyed them. They didn't know that I was done being afraid. And they didn't know that revenge, real revenge, was already forming piece by piece inside me. Waiting. Just waiting. I waited until the burn on my chest healed enough for me to wear a shirt without wincing. By then, I had collected everything I needed. Dates, photos, receipts, recordings. Not revenge by exposure, not viral, not poetic. Something far simpler. Something they would never expect. I started by visiting the landlord 2 blocks down from our street, Mr. Hartman, a strict older man who hated nothing more than problem tenants. He owned the house my parents rented. They bragged constantly about being his most reliable family. They weren't. Not with the illegal extension Dad built in the backyard. Not with the noise complaints Brielle caused every weekend. Not with the unpaid late fees Mom hid by changing the mailbox labels. Hartman's eyes narrowed as I placed every document in front of him. "Where did you get this?" he asked. I looked him in the eye. "By living there." He didn't ask another question. By law, I had every right to report violations in my place of residence, and Hartman had every right to take action, which he did. Fast. The next morning, as my family lounged at the table, the same table where they'd mocked me, a loud, angry banging shook the front door. Dad opened it, and his face drained of color when he saw Hartman and 2 officers standing there. "What the hell is this?" Hartman shoved papers into his chest. "Eviction, effective immediately, and you'll pay every overdue fee before you step off my property." Mom stumbled forward. "You can't do this. We've lived here for years." "And broken the lease, every single one of them," Hartman snapped. Brielle ran to the doorway in her pajamas, mascara still smeared from partying. "Evicted? For what?" Officer number 1 stepped forward. We received reports of unsafe construction, noise disturbances, and child endangerment on the property. Dad turned red. Who reported that? He didn't know yet, but he would. The officer looked directly at me as he said, "A resident with documented injuries." Dad followed the officer's gaze slowly. His eyes landed on me, and I watched the realization hit him like a slap. "You," he whispered, stepping forward. "You did this." I didn't flinch. "You kicked me so hard I spilled boiling soup on myself." You laughed. My son cried. "Yes," I reported it. Mom's voice cracked, high and shaky. "Jenna, don't do this. We're family." "No," I said calmly. "We're a threat, and I'm done keeping my son in danger." Dad's anger twisted into something desperate. "We'll fix it. Just undo this. Tell them it was a mistake." Brielle grabbed my arm hard. "Jenna, stop. Dad could get charged. We could lose everything. Just take it back." I pulled my arm away. "You should have thought about that before calling me a servant and burning my skin." Caleb stepped behind my leg, watching them with wide, confused eyes. The officers allowed them 5 minutes to grab essentials. Just 5. I stood there in the living room, the same place they humiliated me for years, and I watched the 3 of them scramble like insects under a shattered light. Dad cursing under his breath, Mom begging silently, Brielle throwing clothes into trash bags while crying, "This isn't fair," and for the first time in my life. They looked small. When they were finally pushed out the door, Brielle choked out, "Jenna, please, just talk to them." Dad grabbed the doorframe, panting, sweating, furious. "You'll regret this. You hear me? You'll regret this." I stepped forward just enough for him to see my face clearly. "No," I said softly. "I won't." The door closed. The lock clicked. The silence afterward was the most beautiful thing I'd heard in years. Caleb tugged my hand. "Mom, are they coming back?" I crouched down, brushing his hair gently. "No, baby. Not anymore." Later that day, I packed our things and left for good. Not hiding, not running, not crawling. Just leaving a burning house after putting out the last spark. They lost the one thing they valued most: control, home, comfort, power. And I didn't need violence. I didn't need a scene. I didn't need a speech. I just needed the truth. And now, they were the ones wandering, homeless, panicking, blaming each other, and I finally walked away with my son, without looking back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us ion comments from where are you watching this video.